welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. Today's writing prompt for the listener challenge is: write about a time you struggled to find serenity. What barriers stood in your way? Don't forget to read your serenity prayer every day, and I will set you off with that. Okay, so today's topic for the episode was inspired by two songs, and the first one is Over You by Daughtry, and the other one is Be Like That by Three Doors Down. So this time I did not take notes. I simply just listened to the songs and I pontificated. I believe that's the first time I've ever said that word. And then I wrote my episode about a topic that I heard this morning, a phrase that I heard this morning in my morning meeting. And what I heard was the phrase collision of instincts. And this is something that comes up in the big book when we talk about step 8. So I wanted to talk about the journey to healing despite this collision of instincts, because there's one thing I've learned for sure in sobriety, and that is that my instincts suck. At least they did when I was drinking, and I can't say that they've gotten a lot better, but they've definitely gotten better. My instincts tend to cause physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual damage to myself, definitely, and a lot of times over the years to others, even if I didn't even know I was doing it. And going through the steps allowed me to see my role in my relationships with other people. So when I would really just depend on what this collision of instincts, then things seemed to go downhill from there until I learned, or I unlearned, my instincts. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit. So step 8 in the recovery process helps us to address the wreckage of our past. And without alcohol, we start to face issues that we once were drowning in alcohol or just ignoring, or in my case, just terrified to face. Terrified to the point of just trembling when we take the alcohol out of the equation and we've got to be an adult and be brave. It seems so daunting. It seems so scary. But once I walked through several of those things that I was scared to do, I realized how brave I was, either how brave I was or how brave I was to do it, or how much of a wimp I was to be so scared of something that was so easy. So there was just, there was stuff that I felt justified in my anger about stuff that happened to me when I was, not so much younger, but as I was getting older, growing into a young adult, and I was stuck in those wrongs that were done to me. Some stuff was not a big deal, but I let it consume me until when I repeat the story over and over to me about what happened to me, that story becomes far more exaggerated than what happened in real life. And other stuff was a big deal. But I dismissed it. Some of these things I just dismissed it and made it fit into my world and just told myself it was okay. It's okay that that happened to me. It's fine. It's fine. And it wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. And what something that I talked to my psychiatrist about this week was that, and I told you guys about I guess I talked to her about this last week about choosing happiness and how, oh, well, I can just choose happiness and it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. But, um, but it's not fine. That stuff that I'm choosing to not process is still in there. In there, meaning in my dark place. And it's just going to grow. It's going to grow mold in that cold, dark place. And it's not going to go away until I look at it. So if I got mad about something when I was drinking, I would just drink more. And then I would cry and I would pass out. And then the next morning, I would have these, I was just trembling. I was trembling from withdrawal. I was trembling from having an emotional hangover from either whatever I was blubbering about the night before, and my face is all swollen from crying and all of that. And I just, I don't know that I was making a conscious decision to do anything. I was just trying to fill my body with alcohol constantly. And when I got sober, I had to look at the part that I played in these things, even the things that I felt were done to me. What changes did I have to make within myself in order to move forward, to accept what happened and move forward, understand what lessons learned there were there, and be able to move forward with confidence and happiness, and not just choosing happiness, as I was saying just months ago, not just choosing happiness and moving forward without processing. So, some of these things I'll be working on for the rest of my life. You know what? I feel like all of these things I'm going to be working on for the rest of my life, those character defects. But what happens in the meantime while I'm working on this stuff internally? I was punishing myself for so long, and you could see it. You didn't know that that's what I was doing to myself, but the reason why I looked so sick, why I looked bloated, why I looked, there were times when I was very like malnourished, because I looked like that because I wasn't eating. I was punishing myself. I didn't think that I deserved to feel good. I didn't think that I deserved to eat. I didn't think that if I would not eat, I would get this burning in my stomach. And that for some reason, and I think this is an eating disorder. I've talked to other eating disorder folks, that burning sensation was satisfaction to me. It meant that, okay, it's hard to explain, but that was reassurance that I was punishing myself adequately. So I felt that I was, I had a victim mentality, even though I expressed that victim mentality inwardly. I did not necessarily start, communicating to people that I was a victim. I really kept pretty quiet. And I felt like I deserved to live in quiet depression. I just thought that that's what I was destined for. It's really sad. I feel really sad for that young woman that was me. I had no idea. I had no idea that life could be this way. So the truth is, when I was doing that, when I was punishing myself like that, I was just shattering my heart even further. I was darkening it. I was shading in that dark place of mine. And I was just standing there, like watching the pieces of my life fall into a chasm, and doing nothing about it. Doing nothing about it because I didn't think I could do anything about it. I thought that's just the way that it was going to be. I felt like I deserved it. My collision of instincts kept destroying me and isolating me through my selfishness and how I treated others. So part of putting our hearts back together is acknowledging those effects of running, of avoiding. And today, as I was thinking through this episode, I was looking at the irony of how I was constantly running while my life was standing still. And now here I am learning how to sit still in order to truly move forward. So one of the things that makes me very human, on a different note, if I wasn't already overly aware of my imperfections, I find myself thinking about how if things could be different, if I made different choices, if I had done this or that, would I have not had my stroke? Would I have not been an alcoholic? And when I think things like that, I'm not accepting the fact that alcoholism is a disease. Because if I think that I could have done something differently to not end up in this situation, if I could have ended up not having to go to AA, not having to go to detox, then I'm not truly accepting that alcoholism is a disease. And that is first and foremost what I had to understand in order to get sober and stay sober. I had to truly and thoroughly believe that I have a disease and there's nothing I could have done to fix that. It's in me and it's never going away, no matter what I do. And so, what I was going to say is the thing that makes me very human. I find myself thinking, like, do I feel acceptance of lack of control? Am I truly accepting that I don't have control of people, places, and things? No. That's what makes me human. I think that I can still control people. And I can't control, like, intellectually, I know I can't control people. But, we sure do try, don't we? We try. If I can't control them, I think that I can influence them very strongly. And, and I do feel like I'm okay not driving the bus. But I do tend to compare myself to the other people in the bus. And I get wishful. I can't help it. And when before my stroke, I did it. Before my stroke, for sure, I was like, oh, why can't I go to happy hours? Like my husband went out with a friend this evening, very briefly, and it was not on up for an uplifting reason, but he did meet somebody. out, and I thought, why can't I do that? Why can't I join him and go out? Well, right now I can't do it for two reasons. If I want to sit with a couple people having a beer, then that's fine, but I don't want to do that. But the other thing is I can't handle being in public with all of that motion around me. So, of course, I get wishful and think now, even now, why can't I do that? But it's my daily gratitude that brings me back to where my feet are, and I'm able to just, I guess, quickly ricochet that back to where I am. When I throw out that wishful thinking, it ricochets back to me. Ricochet, is that the word? What's the thing that you throw in the air? And it's usually in the cartoons. Boomerang. That's what it is. I can't believe I remember that. Boomerang back to me. My wishful thinking boomerangs back to me. And that's because I have practiced gratitude for years, every single day, writing down 3 things that I'm grateful for. And today, these songs reminded me of being grateful for a safe home, a warm bed, and my quiet little street. That is part of the lyrics, and I thought that was beautiful. So, the book that I'm listening to, other than this is the book for this book club, is The Identity Theft. And it's really hitting me what she's saying. And I listened to it a little bit this morning, and I was thinking about this like free fall sensation. Both like right now, I feel like I have a free falling sensation, but it's from dizziness. But emotionally, when I found out that I had to leave my job, it felt like my entire world just shattered. It did. And maybe, maybe people who are listening and they have a job and they're working 8-10 hour days and they're like, oh, I wish somebody would tell me that I didn't have to work. It's the situation that it happened under. If I didn't have a stroke and somebody just came up to me and said, hey, you can quit your job today, it would not have shattered me. But the fact that it didn't happen on my terms, and not only that, but I had to leave the job and can't do anything else, or am learning how to do what I can do that's not going to cause me pain. And so in this book, the author talks about this specific thing. When she was faced with her job, they said, that she wasn't recovering fast enough and she was going to have to, she wasn't going to be able to work there anymore. And she said that it destroyed her. She talks about how it was really the loss of who she was. And she suffered from despair from the same reality that I faced 9 months ago. And I cried just like she did. I got angry just like she did. And that kind of thing is so validating for me. I'm sad that anybody would have had to go through the same feelings that I did, but it certainly is comforting to know that that I dealt with the same way that somebody else did. And she talked about the stages of bereavement. And in the book, she talks about how, We go through the anger, the denial, these, I think it's called the Kubler-Ross model. I think that's what she said. And she talks about how it's okay to not feel these different phases of grief in linearly. And again, that was like, yeah, because I thought that that's the way it was supposed to be, that I was going to feel it linearly. And I didn't. I would go through denial. I swear I went through the stages of grief like at least 3 times, if not 4 times. I went through the whole thing over and over and over again because I just kept I would get angry, I would get sad, I would be in denial, and then I would start accepting it, and then I would just start all over again. It was really difficult for me. And somebody in, sometimes I'm so emotionally invested, kind of like in that situation, that I can't make decisions, and I'm relying on my instincts to get me through whatever it is. And when I start relying on my instincts, it's a collision again. And when something affects me so deeply emotionally, it's hard to really check those instincts, I cling to my old character defects, and somebody in my program says that these times in our lives are spiritual checkpoints. And I really love that phrase because it makes it sound more like what's happening is part of the master plan in your life. And it makes it sound like whatever's happening is not a mistake. It's not you have not been wronged. It's part of a test you have to pass. It's a spiritual checkpoint. So I really like looking at things that way. I'm sure that I've mentioned it before in the podcast. It's really been a nice perspective for me when I'm going through difficult times, when I have any sort of, when I'm angry about something or anything else. So I want to just extend an invitation to you to consider times when you make justifications for your anger, and when your actions or reactions are maybe solely shattering your heart further. When your instincts are colliding and all of them are wrong and you're hurting yourself and maybe even hurting others. Are these just spiritual checkpoints, testing how well you are unlearning your instincts in recovery? Maybe consider riding that wave that I talked about yesterday rather than letting it smack you in the thighs and spray you in the face, like I mentioned. That's acceptance. I mean, the acceptance comes, I think, after you've ridden the wave all the way into shore. And how you ride the wave in, that's where the grace is, whether you're gracefully accepting something or not. And I'm trying really hard to gracefully accept what I'm going through. I've seen folks that don't accept gracefully, and I don't like what that looks like, and I don't want to do it that way. So something to chew on, as it were. So thanks for joining me today on the Recovery Daily podcast. I'll talk to you tomorrow.